and welcome to the sew along for the Monet Merry Widow, an intermediate / advanced sewing project. Now, if you are a complete newbie to either sewing, lingerie, or corsetry, I don't want to discourage you from making the Monet because my first sewing project ever was a fully lined, strapless, bubble hem dress. I wasn't really prepared about how challenging that sewing project would be, but it was a great way to just dive into sewing, and hey, I haven't stopped. So I don't want to discourage you if you are completely new to sewing, completely new to lingerie, completely new to corsetry, because this sew along is, in my opinion, a game changer. If you're like me and you have written instructions, I can read through them and I understand it, but I really fully grasp something when I see it actually come together. And that is the point of these sew-alongs, is that no matter what level of sewing experience that you have, if you watch this sew-along, it will guide you through all the steps and set you up to succeed in sewing the Monet. This is a multi-part sew-along, but in this video, we are going to go over what pattern pieces you should have cut out, what fabric you should have cut out for each pattern piece, because I think that is one of the most challenging things to understand because there are lots of different variations and all of them will work. So I don't want you to feel obligated to follow the instructions for fabrics for each panels and think that you can't make it because you don't have a certain fabric. There are lots of different variations and I'm gonna try to go through all of them. Also, what trims you should have. The Monet definitely uses a lot of trims. Some of them we actually had custom made just for the Monet. I had to be a little extra. Then we're gonna go over some really helpful, I might even say important and imperative things I think you should know, particularly how to choose your underwire, can you make the Monet without foam cups, and some other things that have come up, especially in the DMs. People have asked me, oh, can I do this? Can I do that? What do you think about that? That I think will be really helpful and for you to know before you start sewing. What this sew along will not cover is any fit corrections, because fit corrections, that could be an entire class on it. And it really depends on your body, on your size, how you're wearing the Monet. So if you have any fit issues, hopefully not a lot, I offer one-on-one consultations and fittings that you can sign up for on Madalynne.com. And in that consultation, we can go over all of your fit issues as well as the pattern alterations to fix them. Let's first go over what pattern piece you should have cut out, as well as what fabrics for each pattern piece. I'm going to break this up into the front, the back, the bra cups, and then the panty. I think it's a little bit more digestible when I break it up that way. For the front, you should have pattern pieces, center front frame, the middle front frame, and the side front frame cut out. On the pattern pieces, it's marked if it should be non-stretch or stretch. And I think this is super helpful since there are a lot of variations of what fabrics you can use. I think that knowing if it should be stretch or non-stretch is a very helpful guide. For the center front frame, I have an gorgeous embroidered tulle lace, which if you're watching this right after it was posted, this is the fabric for our January collection, which hasn't come out yet, but will come out next week. Now, the pattern piece says cut one layer of main fabric, cut one layer of lining fabric. On this example, I am not cutting out a lining fabric because this embroidered tulle lace is stable in all directions, and I want this to be sheer. So even though sheer cup lining is sheer, it still adds like a layer of opacity so that it's not super sheer. So I'm doing that for a design effect. I don't want there to be a lining behind this. Now, if you have a lace that has a little bit of mechanical stretch or even a stretch fabric that you just really want to use for this center front frame, you can use that lining fabric to stabilize it so that you can use it. For the middle front frame, I have a layer of Lycra. And Lycra, by nature, stretches. It is spandex. So I lined it with a sheer cup lining to stabilize it in all directions. I really like Milliskin, which is shiny Lycra, because it gives that effect of like a satin or a silk, but it is much less expensive. Also, I like using on a coordinating panty Lycra, so you're able to use the Lycra on the panty as well as the Merry Widow so that they go together. Also, I wanted to mention that these fabrics are interchangeable. So let's just say you wanted to use the lace on the side panel and you wanted the center front panel to be completely opaque, not see-through. You could interchange these. What's important is that they both are non-stretch. For the side front frame, I have a 1 layer of power knits. Single layer because this power knit is pretty sturdy. If you have a stretch mesh, I don't recommend just a single layer of stretch mesh for any of the side front frame, the side back frame, and the middle back frame. But let's say you have a stretch mesh that matches your center front frame and your side front frame, and you really want to use it. What I recommend is using 2 layers of stretch mesh. So if you combine 2 stretch fabrics, it reduces the stretch so that you still have that support. Now let's move on to the back pieces. For the back, you should have cut out middle back band, side back band, and center back bands. For the middle back band and the side back band, same as the side front, a single layer of power knit. If you have stretch mesh, I would suggest doubling up on those stretch meshes to give you the right amount of support. For the middle back band, the side back band, and I would say so, the side front frame. These pattern pieces look so similar, and it is so easy to flip them when sewing so you have them wrong ways, I would say, especially since the right side and the wrong side of the fabric look exactly the same. A really helpful tip, a tip that I put in the instructions for 2 other corset patterns that Madalynne has, the Annabelle and the Annette. So before sewing, bring these to your sewing machine. Have a thread color in the top and a different thread color in the bobbin. So let's just say your top thread is red, your bobbin thread is like a blue, and just stitch across that waistline. One, that'll help you line up the pattern pieces when you sew it, knowing where the waistline is, because that's super important in corsetry, is to have the waistlines exactly matching. But then also you know which side is right side up, which side is left side, which side is right side. Very helpful, because I guarantee you, I've done it many times, that you will get these flip-flops when sewing. Especially if you're like me and you just scoop everything up and bring it to your sewing machine. For the center back bands, it is 1 layer of the Lycra lined with a layer of the sheer cup lining, because this should be non-stretch. Even though I have this as the Lycra, if you wanted to do out of that embroidered tulle lace just to have a really, just to incorporate the lace into the back of the Merry Widow, you can. What is important is that it is non-stretch and that these middle pieces are stretch. Now let's go over the fabrics and pattern pieces for the bra cups. You have the top cup, the center front lower cup, the side front lower cup, the center front lower cup foam, and the side front lower cup foam. So the only difference between these 2 pattern pieces is that one is for the fabric and one is for the foam. For the top cup, same thing as a center front frame, just a single layer of this embroidered tulle lace. And that is a design choice that I'm not using a lining because I want it to be sheer, and it doesn't need a lining because the fabric already is non-stretch. For the center front lower cup and the side front lower cup, I have a layer of the Lycra. Now I'm keeping this stretch because it's going to be put over foam, which is non-stretch, so that is going to stabilize it. For the lining of this, I actually am using some of that power knit. I personally like using a stretch fabric for a lining when the fabric is non-stretch, even though this isn't, this is stretch. But have you ever made a lined garment? And when you added the lining and sewn it all in, there are like these drag lines because the lining isn't lined up perfectly with the way that the main fabric is. Same thing in a bra cup, is that if you have your main fabric and your lining fabric and they're just shifted in any way, that could cause drag lines. I feel like that happens less if I have a stretch fabric as the lining. So just a little tip, it's not really a bra making rule, it is just something that I do that I find very helpful and that I'm sharing with you. For the center front lower cup foam, now this foam is a type of foam. It's the same foam that they actually sell at Joann's and craft stores. This is another type of foam that a lot of bra makers use. And I like it. There's no like good quality versus bad quality. It really is what you intend to use it for. And for the Merry Widow, for the Monet specifically, I actually like this one better because a lot of the regular bra making ones are a little bit thinner, whereas this one's thick. And I like that because once you add that top stitching on the bra cups, those stitches kind of sink in more, so it has more of like a decorative effect and like a texture to it than just the regular foam that is a little bit thinner. Also, this one's definitely easier to find than that one. But again, it's all about what your intended Merry Widow you want it to look like when it's finished. But I personally like the thicker one for this project. Last but certainly not least is the Monet panty. You should have cut out the front panty, the back panty, and the front panty lace. Now, even though that says lace, I actually switched these up so that the front panty is the lace and they cut out, or front lace, what's this called? What is this called? Oops. Front panty lace is actually the mesh. So you can change them up however you want your finished Monet to look like. And then the back panty is just a single layer of power knit. Same one that I use for the side panels. And then the gusset for the front panty. Now let's move on to elastics, boning, underwire, all those little trims and doodads that you need for the Monet. It's a lot and it is confusing, but hopefully this video really makes it much more understandable. First thing is fold over elastic. You can use wider fold over elastic or narrow fold over elastic. I recommend using a wider fold over elastic for larger sizes and larger cup sizes. Madalynne has a 3/4 of an inch fold over elastic that people buy as if it's toilet paper in 2020. And I will say, it's really good quality. Having a fold over elastic that is good quality is essential to getting it so that it's not wavy, that it lies flat and looks really nice and pretty. If you are a smaller size, small busted, and want a skinnier fold over elastic, that's totally fine. I even have people who are plus size and full bust who like the skinny elastic. So you can use one or either, you can double up, it's all up to you, but you will need fold over elastic. Next thing is underwire channeling. This is going to be used to put in the underwires as well as the boning channels on the Merry Widow. Next thing is shoulder strap elastic. I recommend 3/4 of an inch or wider for larger sizes as well as full busted people. For the shoulder strap elastics, I think it was very hard for me to write this portion of the instructions, is that you have your rings and sliders. One set is for the shoulder strap elastic. The other set of sliders and closures is for that waist tab. And I will say that the waist tab is completely optional because this is a lot of trims to add onto it. And if you don't have them, you're in a place where you can't source them, or for whatever reason you cannot get the trims for the waist tab, those are optional. So you have a closure and a slider for the waist tab. Let's go over this waist tab and what combination that you can use. So you have your waist tab, this closure. This was specially made for the Monet. Does not exist. I literally didn't even know what to call it when we had it made. So I'm calling this a closure. How about that? So you have one side is about 1.25 inches, and you want a flat elastic to go through that. Now, finding a flat elastic that will fit into this closure is difficult. It was even difficult sourcing, and we had to have some made. So if you find, here is a great example, if you find one that is a little bit narrow, and this is one of the elastics that came in the original kits, even this is a little bit narrow to put through it. What you can do, and what I recommend so that it doesn't shift in the closure, is that before sewing it on, overlap one over the other and do a zigzag to connect the two so that it is the width of the closure and that it won't move. So you would sew these two strips together so that it would fit in that closure. The other side is for a narrower strap elastic or flat elastic. This is just a skinny shoulder strap elastic that you put through these. The opening is about 8 millimeters, but you could go anywhere between like 6 millimeters or even 10 millimeters. This is a little bit wider than that opening, but I can zhuzh it in there so that it does fit in there. There we go. There we go, that it fits. Let's see here. For a little tip for people who bought one of the original kits, we put one of the elastics that we carry, which is this elastic. And again, it is too narrow for that closure. So you can double up. It shifts just a little bit. So you can double up on that elastic before sewing it. Sew the elastics together and then put it through the closure. This particular elastic has little stripes on it, so it actually makes it easier to overlap so that it does fit. Oh, that's a little too much. So that it does fit inside that closure. Now, with this elastic though, what I like about this elastic is that it's like a striped elastic. Not that like it's like the colors are striped, but it does have these little like fishnets in there. And what we did is we actually cut along those fishnets. You do have to be a little precise and careful, but I feel like as DIYers, we love that. And that this elastic can act as two. And this actually became the strap elastic for that side. Love that. So get a bang for your buck with this elastic. You can use it for one side of the closure as well as the other. So you could use it for both sides of the closure. And then the slider is just for the flat elastic as well. That goes on the wider side. Then you will need your hook and eye tape, which I did have a question pop up in the DMs from somebody who is a true corset maker. I don't want the hook and eye. I want like a true corset back. If you have corset experience, you can definitely add the eyelets or the grommets in the back and do a lace up like a classic corset, but the Merry Widow was not drafted that way. Then last but certainly not least, boning. So you have two options for boning. You have your spiral steel, which is a little bit more supportive than the plastic one. We actually do have a really good plastic one, and we've done like tests of making one with the steel versus the plastic, and the reduction is pretty close. One thing you want to note about the steel boning is that how do you intend to wash it? So with steel boning, there is a risk that it might rust. So just keep that in mind if you're going for the steel boning. The plastic boning though, this is a really good plastic boning. It's not the stuff that they sell at Joann's. It's not the sewable kind. It's actually really sturdy. It's a little bit thinner too. So if you sew your underwire channeling, your boning channels with the stitches a little too close together, you can zhuzh this in there and it'll fit. So this is the plastic boning. So it really just is up to you. And then you have your classic pair of underwires. Next section, I will get into how to choose your underwire. The last part of this video are some things about fit. Again, this sew along will not be going over fit alterations. That will depend on your size, your shape, and if you need help with fit, you can schedule a consultation. But these comments on fit are not only helpful, I actually would say that they are crucial to sewing a successful Monet. Now, anytime you sew a pattern for the first time, you would be very lucky if it fits to the T right off the bat. But knowing this, I think, gets you so much closer on that first try. First thing is that underwires. So biggest thing is when I teach how to make an underwire bra via whether it's a retreat or the virtual workshops that I have, is that a lot of people don't know that there is a relationship between the pattern and the underwire, and that they work together. And that if your pattern is not shaped like your underwire, then no matter how good you sew it, there will be fit issues. So first thing that you are going to do is that you are going to take your measurements. You are going to, let's just hypothetically say that your full bust is a 36 and your rib cage is a 30. So according to the Monet size chart, you would be a 30F, double D. So once you've determined that you are a 30F, then you will go to your underwire chart and you will see what underwire size you should choose. Now that underwire chart is based off of Madalynne's classic underwires. So that only applies to the classic underwires that Madalynne sells in their web shop. Let's just say you live in a place and you don't have access to buy from Madalynne and you're buying a classic underwire from another vendor. What makes bra making and bra fitting so confusing is that there's no consistency in sizing. So if you purchase a classic underwire from Madalynne, it might not be the same as a classic underwire from another vendor. So if you are not buying a classic underwire from Madalynne, you want to watch this to make sure that your underwire shape matches the underwire shape of the wire seam line on your pattern. Now I am taking the center front frame and the side front frame, and I am overlapping them at the wire seam line about 1/2 inch because these seam allowances are 1/4 inch. And even if you purchase a classic underwire from Madalynne, I suggest doing this. I just always suggest doing this if you're making an underwire bra. Then you are going to take your underwire and you are going to lay it over. You want to mark 1/4 inch in from this pattern. You don't want to put this underwire at the edge of the pattern because that's not where it is when you actually sew it. You want to mark about 1/4 inch in all the way around, and you want to put your underwire inside that line because when you sew it, that is actually where your underwire is. And you want to make sure that the U shape on your underwire matches or is very similar to the U shape on your Monet pattern, because if you bought a classic underwire from somebody else, it might not. Also, I just always recommend, even if you buy a classic underwire from Madalynne, just doing this step, making it just your process of making any underwire bra. You want to have about 1/4 inch, maybe 1/4 inch to about 1/2 inch on this side, and I would say about 3/4 inch on this side. So give you enough room to fold that over, also give you enough room to sew that photo elastic there. So that's how you choose your underwear. A great question that came up is that somebody did not want the foam padding in their Monet. Loved everything about it, but just like not into the decorative stitching. You can sew the Monet without the foam padding and just make your bra cups entirely lace if you want to. But the thing to keep in mind is that that foam padding in there adds a little bit of volume. So you might have to go down a cup size. Might have a little bit of, I would suggest making a muslin to just test it out. But you definitely can make the Monet without the foam padding. Another question that I got that I think was fantastic, love all the questions, is that love the Monet, but I don't want the whole thing. Like I just want to make like a bra of it. I love the whole silhouette of the bra portion, but I don't need it to extend all the way down to my hips. So these lines right here on the Monet, you have your waistline, you have your hip line as well. this one right here, are guides when sewing notches, but also if you just want to make the Monet a bra, you could just slash it or cut it along this line that is above the waistline. Also, if you only want to go to your waist, you could also just cut it at the waistline. Another fantastic question that I got was on those side panels, how much reduction does it give? Because somebody who is into classic corsetry looks at the Merry Widow and thinks like, thinks about how much reduction does it give? That is a common question in corsetry. So the amount of reduction that the Monet is going to give you is going to be determined by your fabric choice. So I'm just holding up a little piece of fabric here, but this is a strong power knit, so that it is going to have not a 4 or 5 inch waist reduction like a classic corset, but it is going to serve its purpose and give the right amount of reduction that the Monet was drafted for. So if you use a firm power knit, you are going to get the amounts of reduction that the Monet is drafted for. If you use a more stretchy fabric, one that isn't as supportive as a power knit, you're not gonna have as much reduction. So again, the amount of reduction that the Monet is going to give is going to be determined by the stretch percentage, especially of those side panels. The less stretch that those side panels have, the more reduction that it's going to give. You might have to go up a size. The more stretchy it is, the less reduction that it's going to give.